Okay. Hello, 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 hello. You can hear me? You can hear me well? See me well, well, well. You're just watching me on YouTube. Hilarious. I need to post my podcast, actually. You need to go. Have you seen all my Spotify episodes? If you haven't, please go watch me there. Um, Very fun. Okay, guest requests are on. Let's get moving and grooving. Let's get moving and grooving. I'm going to be doing my laundry. I literally go on live because I'm doing my laundry, and I just need a second thing to do because I have no attention span. Did I go live on Destiny? Not yet. Lol. He missed my. But we might go live today. I don't know. We'll see. He said to hit him up. Actually, I should DM him around now. TBH. Let me actually do that. Let me just shoot him a DM. Yep. Should be. What time is it Eastern? Oh, shit, we have 200 people on here. Okay, if you have a disagreement, send a guest request. If you don't disagree, don't send a guest request. What time is it Eastern right now? 250. Okay, if 250 people, here's the thing. This live, they're really like attacking my live. So if you want to see an interesting live, then send likes, share it with people. That's the best thing you can do. Share it. The people sending gifts also boost it quite a lot. So thank you so much to the people sending gifts, sharing, liking, following. That's what is important to boost the live just at the very beginning because they give me a boost of viewers at the very beginning and then it kind of falls off. And if we don't get anything interesting within that first beginning, we don't get anything at all. So anytime.
What's up?
On. Uh, Hello.
Hello?
What'd you send a guest request to disagree about?
Why do you want him to stop?
Because I don't think the U.S. should be funding such like horrendous and heinous acts that the IDF are taking. I don't think the U.S. should be complicit in, and I think we have a moral obligation to take any and all diplomatic efforts that we have at our disposal to end those actions.
What about the moral responsibility to maintain a superpower across the world?
We don't have a moral responsibility to maintain a superpower, just like Rome didn't have more responsibility to maintain an empire. England didn't have more responsibility to maintain colonies. France, Portugal, Spain didn't have such a moral responsibility. The USSR didn't have more responsibility to not collapse. Like, what are you talking about? We don't have a moral
Most of the,
responsibility
most
to
of
maintain
those,
a superpower.
most of those disassembled or were forced to disassemble.
Yeah,
Why? So you want the U.S. to disassemble?
I want the U.S. empire to disassemble. I don't know. I don't think the contiguous U.S. needs to disassemble. I think you could
Are
lose some parts. Hawaii should be free.
you from the U.S.?
Puerto Rico should. What?
Are you from the U.S.?
Yeah.
So you want your own country to fall apart?
I think it doesn't have a moral obligation not to, right? My morality is not founded in selfishness. What I
But,
want personally for my own personal gain is totally segregated from
so
what
what's
is
the?
good or what ought to be good.
Do you know the oath that the president takes?
That doesn't determine morality. You made a moral claim. Do you want to make a
You
civil or legal claim?
you want to put the moral claim on it, but the
No,
president's
you
number
literally
one.
said, what about the moral obligation to maintain a global
Okay, fine. You don't have
superpower?
to care about that one. But the president's
Oh,
number
okay. So,
one job is to take care of the U.S. interests
and I
before
don't think
anything
that's
else.
a ubiquitously good job to have.
Yeah, and that's what the president's fulfilling. I don't like what he's doing. I think
Okay,
morally
then
it's wrong.
condemn him for that.
But he has to look out for his country first because there's no other places over there that the U.S. has any sort of control over. And if they
That's not
lose
true.
Israel,
That's not true.
what do they have over there?
Jordan, Egypt, UAE, Saudi Arabia. Are you kidding me?
Wait, you say that one more time? I lost you for a second.
Jordan, Egypt, UAE, Saudi Arabia.
So what is that place is huge. Wait, do they even have? They don't have they don't have a great foothold in Egypt, and Jordan's very tiny.
Jordan's
UAE,
like a military might in the area, and also Israel's very tiny. What are you talking about?
but they have a strong military.
Yeah, so does Jordan
But they're not.
because of the
They're not good
U.S.
for.
So
But
does Qatar because of the U.S. Saudi Arabia has some of the most um, oil like reserves in the world, and we have huge amounts of economic control over Saudi Arabia.
Why would? What do you mean by huge amounts of control over Saudi Arabia?
In that they're literally our little bitches. Like they do what we want. The Saudi Arabian government doesn't have popular support, just like the Jordanian monarchy doesn't have popular support. They need external funding to maintain the monarchy, so that they don't fall to the Arab Spring, like fall to what happened in the Arab Spring. Obviously,
But they don't. That's the confusion. It looks like it, but the thing is that it's just whatever falls within their spectrum of what's right and what's wrong. But they have very strong religious beliefs, so they're not
yeah,
going
they
to get
don't
pushed
fucking follow
forever.
them. The Saudi princes drink alcohol all the time. It's not the
Yeah,
religious
I know.
beliefs they had. They still. It doesn't matter how much you believe the religion.
That's
The
the same
people
here,
don't
though.
like the monarchy. The
That's
people
the
don't
same
like
here,
the
though.
monarchy. The monarchy requires a foreign support to sustain itself. That's just a material fact.
That's the same here, though. People will complain about climate control and then go fly 20 minutes on a private jet to get to wherever they need to go
Exactly. It
to.
means it's ineffectual.
Yeah, everything at the top is like that, though. And but here's the thing: there's
Exactly.
no
So it means it doesn't actually have material impact. I'm talking about what has material impact. American support for Saudi Arabia has a huge amount of material impact on Saudi Arabia's foreign policy. I mean, we saw that following the Abraham Accords. Saudi Arabia hasn't yet fallen to the Abraham Accords, but they were working very, very hard to because they want F-15s or F-16s and a nuclear program.
okay. But here's the thing: there's no legal route for them to back out and not help them. There's no
For who
legal
to
reason.
for
What?
who are you talking about? America?
Yeah.
What laws? America doesn't follow international law. Also, like we don't have a legal obligation to increase aid like Biden did.
No, it's all up to personal discretion.
Exactly. So it's not a legal question. Wait, what are you saying?
It's he's doing what he thinks is best for the U.S.'s interest
Exactly. But you just made a legal
to be a
claim.
superpower. But
You keep saying things that are just not true and then ignoring that you said them. What
what
did
I
you
know,
mean? There's no legal route for us not to do it. That's not true. He didn't have to increase aid.
it's in the U.S. best interest to do it though to
But
maintain a
what did you
foothold.
mean when you said it was a legal obligation?
Legal. That's the oath. They take the oath. They take the oath to put the country first before anything else.
Oh, okay. So you're saying, first of all, that oath is not legally binding. You realize that, right?
It's an oath. What do you mean? If you don't do it,
Oaths
you're
are
a
not
traitor.
legally binding. Who would sue them?
That's a good question.
No one sued them. They're not legally binding.
Hold
Uh,
on, but it's the same. It's the
of
same
course,
thing.
like
No, it's the same thing
high class moral oaths like that are not legally binding. What do you like? Okay, yours.
because
I'm
no,
not
because they've never
talking to
been
the
broken.
president. I'm not talking to the president, right?
Oh,
I'm
okay. So you
talking
talk
to
about.
every American with a moral view. This is a moral statement. This is what they ought to do, right?
Oh, okay. So
However,
then you're
this
good.
ends up happening, I don't really care. If it's the Congress that's the first actor, if it's the president that's the first actor, everyone that conceivably can and is able to, right, ought to work towards this end. I didn't name the president. You did, right? So is it your
Because
view that no one in America, are you saying that America doesn't have like control over its foreign policy?
no, 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 I think we were arguing two different things. Because when you say
Yeah, you're
U.S. fund,
arguing against no one.
no, because you
Arguing
said
against this state. Do you disagree with this statement?
it's if that's what you mean, it's misleading. Because when you say U.S. funding, Joe Biden will sign
But Joe
bills that
Biden
give
is
them
not the
money,
US.
but he acts on their behalf. He's the one saying the
Sometimes
U.S. gives them money,
he's not the only American actor.
but he's the commander in chief.
He's not the only American actor. Congress exists, the judges exist, Secretary of State exists,
But they're not all giving the money either.
and nor is Joe Biden. Joe Biden doesn't have absolute discretion over all the money either. Actually, he should have. He legally has notably less discretion than he's pretending to have.
But the point being, that's see, you talk public
I didn't.
perception, and then you also talk what actually goes on. So what do you want? You want to talk about what actually goes on, or what people perceive?
Yeah, Joe Biden has notably less control than what you're talking about.
Okay, but I understand. I don't understand that. But do you want to talk about what's
Okay, cool.
publicly perceived, or what actually is behind going on
I'm
behind the
talking
scenes?
material facts.
Because you just said you just only you're not talking about you're not talking about the actual law. You're talking about like morality of it, and morality doesn't really stand.
That's a
And
material fact.
okay, yeah, but yeah, point being, he wants a foothold over there, but it's not the.
I know
I
what
agree
he
with you. I don't
wants,
think it's
and
morally right.
England wanted a foothold in South Africa. It doesn't mean that they should have continued their colonial practices. It's no argument from the imperial core, right, to say, well, this is what's best for us, so we should continue doing it. Obviously not.
Why is it not best for us?
No, I'm saying it's entirely irrelevant whether we ought to continue doing it if it's best for us. Like as I said, England wanted a foothold in South Africa. It doesn't mean that they should have continued their imperial practices. Go back to any other retraction of an empire in history and try and run this argument.
But here's my thing though. You're interesting. Do you want the U.S. superpower whole thing to fall to like disassemble essentially?
I don't I don't want an empire in this world. Yeah. I'm anti-imperialism. Ubiquitously. America is an empire. I'm anti-American imperializing. I'm
Okay.
anti-Russian imperialism. I'm anti-Chinese imperialism. But
Okay.
I have to be, I am equally anti-American imperialism.
Okay.
Me being American doesn't prevent me from being moral.
I agree with you. The only thing is, I just think that's a bit of a utopian view. Because
Everything's a
do you think
utopian
the U.S. can
view.
stand it? Do you think the U.S. can sustain itself? And because we're only 300 years in, do you think the U.S. can last 1,000 years without really
But
imposing itself?
what is the moral standard that you're proposing?
I don't. So look, I don't agree with the Israel thing, but I also think that the U.S. has to do what it has to do to survive. If we're only
That's
300
a
years in,
tautology.
what'd you say?
That's a tautology.
Okay, but again, if we want the U.S. to last 1,000 years, very
I
few.
don't want the U.S. to last 1,000 years if that's what it takes.
Then that's, I guess you're just not in favor of the. I don't know. You're just.
But if
I don't
that's
want
what
to
it
throw
takes,
names
yeah,
at
I'm
you.
fine with that.
Yeah, no, I just don't want to throw
I
names at
don't want
you.
the British Empire to last 1,000 years if it took, continuing imperialization.
What?
Fine, we can
Okay.
talk pragmatically, but the moral conclusion will never change.
Okay, so I understand the morality of it isn't cool at all.
Yeah, but we're
I think
only
you're thinking
commenting on
wrong.
morality and then practical implementations of that morality.
But I think
If you're saying, well, this particular implementation you're suggesting of this morality is impractical, okay, cool, we can talk about that and the other opportunities, but that's not what you're saying. You're saying we should entirely ignore, or like, we can agree on the morality, but like saying nothing of value about the implementation thereof.
no. I don't want to ignore it. I'm just saying it's just you just have to put what's actually practical, and if the only way to make it work is to have a foothold and everywhere, then I think
But
that's what you
make
got to
what
do.
work? Practicalities are oriented towards a goal. Goals are moral goals.
Yeah, lasting forever essentially. You're trying to last forever.
Yeah, I don't know why we would want to do that.
But I think you would understand why every senator and congressman and everybody in the
No, I
executive.
can understand why they're acting evilly, but doesn't mean that it's just, and doesn't mean that I don't want to put social pressure to make it harder for them to act evilly.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, it's because it's not just. I think what Israel's doing is wrong. I
Cool,
think
then you're saying nothing.
I'm not gonna tell the U.S. to try and make its lifespan shorter, especially when we aren't guaranteed that there'll be another
Why?
country
Why
that
would you
protect.
not? Like, would you tell the British Empire to make its lifespan shorter?
No, I have to go, but I
You
don't have to
wouldn't.
be
You
on
wouldn't
here.
tell the Britain to leave South Africa.
They're in a very different situation. All of
You wouldn't
Europe is
tell
the same
Britain to
size as U.S.
leave India.
All of Europe is the same size as U.S. They're not fighting with the same stakes.
Bro, England controlled what, 3/4 of the world?
At one point, yes.
Yeah. So the retraction of the British Empire certainly hurt its economy. They knew it hurt its economy. Would you tell them not to retract as an empire?
I'm not gonna tell them to do it. If they want to do it, that'd be cool. But I would.
You're
It's
really telling me that you wouldn't support, right? You wouldn't actively push England at the time to retract from their colony. You're saying you would be
it's
neutral according to England on colonialization.
it's the same as telling the U.S. not to. It's the same as telling the U.S. to leave Israel completely.
So what you're saying is like you see the atrocities they committed in Namibia. If you're talking to France, you see the atrocities they committed in South Africa or in West Africa, and you turn to France and you're like, look, bro, that's fine. You do what you want. You do you, Queen. Is that what you're saying?
Honestly, hold on. Yeah, probably. Honestly, because you have to look at
Okay,
it for
bro.
yourself.
Then you are just evil. Being silent about colonialism during the time of colonialism, when you have a privilege that can help change it and literally save lives, that is just as evil as supporting it.
The
If you
same.
look at what happened in the Democratic Republic of Congo, if you were Dutch at the time, the only way I would categorize you as any good person, if you have the privilege to do this, is if you stood up and told them that what they were doing was absolutely disgusting.
Are you saying if I had the
Right?
privilege?
Yeah, if you have the privilege to do so.
And I'm on the. And who am I, on behalf of who?
You're Dutch, for example, and you're looking at what Leopold is doing.
Uh, Honestly, because I don't remember what else they had control over at that point, at that like in that area. Uh, I think I don't know. I have to. I honestly, I would probably need to look at more of the specifics, but I have to go though. But I think you're pretty smart, honestly. A lot of people on here just come on here just to like argue. You seem and you actually listen, so I appreciate that.
No problem. Thank you for coming up.
Thanks.
Let me see. Let me check something. Hello. Oh, did he leave? Okay. Send a guest request if you disagree with me, please. Stream. Cool, 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 cool. Oh yeah, I am live. Okay. Okay. So I faced an issue, and I need a solution. Okay. Tap that screen, share it, etc. You know, do the cool thing so we can get a guest request. Otherwise, is my sound not on? I don't know. Anyway, can you hear me? Let's see. Thank you so much. It's on. Cool, cool, cool. Oh, it's staticky? Okay. Well, I'm just like, oh shoot, didn't mean to do that, lol. I forgot that that would do that. Anyway, um, I just needed to take that off because I was getting warm. One second. Oh, there we are. Okay, dokie. Send a guest request if you disagree with me. Yeah, the my mics are not bad. Um, if Destiny responds to me, it'll be soon. But alas, okay. Um, until we get a disagreeer, do we really not have anyone disagreeing? Like, bro, what will happen to the Israelis? What will happen to the white South Africans? They'll just keep living there, bro. Like, I don't, I get it. Ethnic struggles are extraordinarily difficult and messy and harmful, but it seems extraordinarily unlikely to me. Um, that maintaining the current situation of extreme power imbalance between the two ethnicities is going to solve this any quicker. Do we restart this live? Mm, mm. I don't know, Arthur Rupin. Opinion on NATO? Eh. Um, and Israelis would go for the land. Like there would be a land grab, yeah. But foreign support and foreign etc. can solve this pretty quickly. I don't. I agree. Hamas is not the solution. I'm not a Hamas supporter. Yeah. He send a guest request if you disagree with me. I see a lot of people disagreeing with you on here. Yeah, TikTok has attacked me. Anyway, so basically, I've set a very hard task for me myself because I have a. It's my birthday, everyone. It's my birthday today. Yay. Um, why won't you be a resistance supporter? Oh, I support resistance. I don't support Hamas. It's kind of like think about this. Um, I really like Sinn Féin. I don't like the IRA in the 1920s. We can talk about the IRA in the 1970s and 1990s, but Sinn Féin I love. So their resistance 100%. But whatever. Thank you for all the birthday wishes, everyone. If you disagree with me, send a guest request. Hello.
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Can you
What are you
explain
sending guest request to
exactly
disagree about?
how is Saudi Arabia USA bitch, like you said?
In that they bend over and take it from us. What do you mean how they are like, what's the question regarding them?
Saudi Arabians like to portray that they are ruling the world with the oil they have, you know? They act like they can destroy the whole world economy with the oil that they have. And they all the time say that they can completely destroy the USA economy by simply cutting the oil of them.
Yeah, and they're just wrong. That's a really easy answer. America has some of the largest oil reserves in the world. Our economy would take a hit, right? Yeah, but America has one of the largest oil reserves in the world. We have a huge oil field, right? We're not going to be killed by the lack of oil. Natural gas, we now have a huge relationship with Qatar to be pretty strong on natural gas. And we have the largest investment of portable LNG, natural gas transportation in the world. America's not going to be harmed by natural gases. It's not going to be harmed by fossil fuels by and large, like we were in the 70s or 80s. That we built a strategic relationship with Saudi Arabia out of fear for this. That's true. But since then, Saudi Arabia's population has, number one, not supported the monarchy. Number two, moved on. The Saudi Arabian military is highly dependent on America, and Saudi Arabia's diversification has not been nearly as successful as places like Qatar, right? And Qatar is 100% militarily reliant on either Iran or the US for their military needs. So yeah, Saudi Arabia is very, very, very dependent on America. It's maybe moving away from that as it moved towards BRICS, right? Um, Maybe, but we'll see how they work with BRICS. But until then, Saudi Arabia is still sucking America off for F-16s and a nuclear program. They asked America for permission for a nuclear program.
Okay. Well, that was enough. Thank you very much.
No problem.
That was enough. Thank you very much. Yeah, man, that's the only thing that he can do, say, actually. What's up, bro?
What's up? Would you send a guest request to disagree with?
No, because, yeah, he was trying to, Zama, to put Islam in a wrong place. Like, Islam is against the whole mankind or the whole humanity here.
What did you
Doesn't make
send a
sense.
guest request to disagree with?
About, he said about petrol that he gonna put the Islam Muslims, they're gonna put the economy bad because of their petrol that they have in the Middle
What
East.
did you send a guest request to disagree with? Me on.
No, not you, not you.
Oh, okay.
Hello.
Hello, would you send a guest request to disagree about?
I think we talked before, but there are a few issues I think have happened since then. Uh,
Sure. I do not remember. I'm just going to be so honest.
okay.
Um,
So I wanted to ask you about like the IDF funding, right? I'm not sure if you're paying close attention to if you're referring to the supplemental aid bill, which includes aid to Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan. Is that what you're referring to?
I'm referring to a huge series of diplomatic levers that can be pulled to work against Israel. But yeah, the supplemental aid bill is ridiculous.
Well, okay, but
Increasing aid to Israel at the time.
okay, but at least in the immediate term, so to speak, like, are you looking at like opposing that bill, or conditioning it, or what exactly are you proposing?
I'm not proposing a single pronged change of American foreign policy. Right, changing one prong of American foreign policy wouldn't make any sense and probably would work against any practical aim. I'm talking about a fundamental shift in American foreign policy regarding Israel that, in totality would surely include us not sending billions more dollars to them. But it would also include us not using our UN membership to protect them and indemnify them against war crimes, which we've consistently do since the foundation. It would be changing our free trade agreement regarding them, right? Using a series of levers until they stop being a criminal nation, right? Once they accepted the right of return, once they actually respected the foreign institutions of international law, etc. America has an obligation to use its effective power hegemony um, to not support genocide.
Okay, but is that the position you hold for every other country on earth? Because I think if you believe in interventionism, in the sense that the United States should use all of its leverage to prevent genocides wherever they may be, although that's legal determination to be made by the ICJ. But let's say what you define as genocide, right, or other people define as genocide, that would be an interventionist posture, so to speak. And you could arguably say that why are we not doing the same with the Uyghurs in China? Why are you understand how it can lead to a lot of problems if we go from if you say cut aid.
No, I know, but I'll just cut you there. I'm not a unilateral interventionist. I think America should just watch over its colonies, and I view Israel primarily as a proxy state for America. And I think our obligations to intervene on human rights behalf changes quite strongly when we've spent billions and billions of dollars over the past 30 years supporting and building up this military criminal state, right? I think that's pretty fair. It's very different when it's the Chinese in the Uyghurs, where we haven't had a direct military integration. We haven't spent billions of dollars in subsidies, etc., supporting them directly and supporting their foreign aid, foreign goals. So,
Yeah,
no,
but
I'm not ubiquitously interventionist. I'm talking, and also I'm making a practical argument. I'm saying practically Israel we can talk about. So there's a practical distinction, right? China doesn't really give a shit what America says. Israel certainly does. And then there's also a moral distinction. Israel has been supported militarily and morally by America. China hasn't.
okay, but why was Israel supported by America? I think initially there was an arms embargo by the United States and many Western countries on Israel, and it was actually the USSR that was initially funding Israel. I mean, arming Israel through
What are you
Czechoslovakia,
talking,
which was
1948?
yeah, 1948, and it was actually thanks to the USSR secretly arming Israel through their satellite state that Israel was able to win the independence war.
Okay,
So
I mean,
that's
we can talk about that. I'm not terribly sure about the historicity of that, but Joe Biden said it best. The reason America is supporting Israel is because it's a really good deal. We get a satellite state in the Middle East to watch on the explicitly and structurally unstable area that we have created, right? In exchange for comparatively low military spending by comparison to American net military spending. And we just happen to be able to boost the lobbyists that are paying off the senators of the military industrial complex. It works. It's a win, 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 win. So it's an investment. It's a great investment for America. I have no doubt that it's a great investment for the empire. But then there's also kind of a political side to it. Evangelical Christians oftentimes support Israel for what I would call extraordinarily anti-Semitic reasons, but that's neither here nor there. So there's a political push from the evangelical Christian right to support Israel. So it's a complicated issue as to why America is now supporting it, but it is just a fact that we are.
okay, but you don't think an element, at least in the initial 20 years of Israel's existence, you can Google it. You can do your research on it later and then come back to me maybe at a future date, whatever. But
Are you saying it was part of the Cold War?
yeah, I'm talking about
Oh, yeah,
between
that's fine.
1948 and 1961, which was the first time, I think it was the Hawk missiles, which were for the first time approved by JFK to be sent to Israel. That was the first time. But prior to that, it was initially the USSR. So Israel was not created as some sort of American colony. Why would the USSR fund an
Did I
American
claim that
colony?
it was created as a U.S. colony?
No,
Is
it
that
was
what I
not
claimed?
created as a U.S. colony. It
But
was
was that what I claimed?
no. But, okay, if we can move on. If that was not your point,
Well, that's not the words I said, right?
okay. Although over time the U.S. became an ally of the United States, that's where we agree over time. But initially, it wasn't the case. Now, do you
I
not
mean,
think?
America didn't have direct support for it. I mean, wasn't the U.S. the first to recognize Israel's right?
Yeah,
First
it was. It
country.
was. Yeah, it was the
Okay,
first.
yeah. So
I mean, look, the first country to recognize the United States was Morocco. Okay, and I think vice versa. And I
Oh
think
no, actually, it was the Soviet Union, followed by Nicaragua, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, and
no,
Poland,
no, I'm talking
and
about
then
the
it
first
did in
country to recognize
1949.
the United
Okay,
States. Yeah, the first country to recognize the United States was Morocco. No, like you can't today say that Morocco is the biggest ally. So I don't think that being the first country to
well, no,
recognize
Dennis,
it.
the first country leads into your exact point. The Soviet Union was the first country to grant de jure recognition to Israel. Yeah, I have no
Okay.
doubt that it supported it. I never claimed that it was created as a colony.
Okay, so we can agree on that.
I
I think over time, I
I don't think we're
believe.
really agreeing on anything. You're just misquoting me. What's your actual? Can you start with thesis and then go to argument? Start with
Okay,
thesis so we know if what you're arguing is
okay,
relevant to the topic. Yeah.
yeah. So what I'm arguing is that the United States was not created as some sort of American colony. Israel was not created as some sort of American colony in the Middle East.
Okay, cool. I don't
Over
care.
time, yeah,
Great,
if you
cool.
could let me
Wait,
finish.
no. Don't care about that first clause. Doesn't matter to the argument I'm
Okay,
making.
yeah,
Cool.
over
What's
time
the?
they became allied, and I think part of it was the United States worrying about the fate of the huge Jewish population that was living in Israel at the time, especially after many wars, including the 1948 wars, which the goal of which was the destruction of Israel. Okay, they did not recognize Israel's right to exist under the United Nations partition plan, and they wanted to destroy that country. Okay, now the United States, you could have the cynical argument. I mean, maybe both things are true, right? It is both true that the United States had strategic interests that align with the Israelis' interests, right? In the sense that they both allied against other potential threats in the region. But also, I think part of it is that the United States maybe did not want to see another, I don't know if I can say the word, but
Yeah, G
HGOS.
side.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
G-side, HGOS. I
Okay.
think part of it is that. Now, did the United States support of Israel go too far in some cases? Probably yes. Okay, but I think it's a little bit disingenuous to say that the United States just wanted to plant Israel there and have a colony or whatever. Now, the problem with the
I mean, I didn't say that was their only reason, did I? I don't doubt that some of it was actual genuine care for Jews. Even if I believe it was genuinely misguided, because I viewed the foundation and maintenance of Israel as one of the largest drivers of anti-Semitism in the world. But I don't doubt that there was some genuineness. But oftentimes they would let their mask down, and they would talk about, well, we don't protect. Like, I'm just gonna be so real. America doesn't really give a shit about minorities at all. They don't care about Jews in America. Why in the world would they care about Jews out of America? Um, why would we pick this particular minority to protect? Why would we? There have been genocides against a series of people, a series of places. Um, it doesn't seem to actually track that one of our largest foreign investments ever, right, would go to these people primarily because they're an oppressed minority, when there were oppressed minorities in hundreds of places, right? What's special about this? That's a much more interesting question than saying, well, maybe it had something to do with them being a minority. There's absolutely nothing special about that, right? There was a huge genocide against them, yes, and I don't want to discount that. But I mean, so real, America didn't do that much against it. And America has mistreated Jewish people all the time. And also, a huge amount of American politicians have been extremely anti-Semitic at the time, right? One of the largest pushes in American politics, they'll say this themselves, are even white even who are massive anti-Semites. Those Christians are one of the largest anti-Semites in the world because they want Jews to go into Israel and then for the rapture to come and kill them, right? The only way that they believe the rapture to come is that the Jews are wiped out at some point or fully convert to Christianity. That is an anti-Semitic belief, and that is one of the most endemic reasons for white evangelical Christians who have a huge
um,
amount of political control in America to support it. So I actually think, sure, some people of good faith, they really care about this given minority and they think this is a good way to do it, but that doesn't fully explain, right, the support, because why aren't we doing it blank, blank, and blank? And there's also a huge amount of anti-Semitism that goes into the support of Israel as well. Some of the original Zionists were anti-Semites, and that still runs true.
Okay, I think I really disagree with you on many points there. Maybe in our generation, we don't see what you said, what's special about Israel. Our generation doesn't know that because we tend to view Israel through maybe the last, I think Netanyahu's rule, which is, a far right rule, right? And we don't see the history prior to that. Most young people don't know much about Israel prior to 2000, right?
I mean, I do,
Yeah, maybe you do, but I'm talking in general. The problem
but
is,
talk
what's
to
special
me.
about Israel is that the world just came from a disaster, World War II, where 6 million people were unalived because of their religion. And I think a lot of people had great sympathy, like huge amount of sympathy for the Jewish people, including the Jewish people in the Middle East who were expelled from, Iraq, from Egypt, from other countries, and had to move to Israel,
Yeah,
right?
but America didn't support them following that. America supported them 20 to 30 years later.
Yeah, but it continues to be like I'm just explaining how older generations view this and why there
Talk to
was
me,
more.
Dennis.
I'm sorry?
Talk to me. I'm aware about the history. I'm aware. That's why it doesn't really track. Yes,
Okay.
there was a massive genocide following World War or during World War II, but that didn't garner American support for Israel. 20 to 30 years later, American support came. So
Yeah,
is it
but
the best explanation for that support that 60 years later or 40 years later, right? There was a genocide? That
yeah,
doesn't seem to track.
yeah, it does track to it in a sense because the United States was initially, I think, non-interventionist, but the United States recognized Israel. It's not like they opposed.
We
They
weren't
saw,
interventionists following World War II?
no, yeah, I mean, the United
We
States
were
was
massive interventionists following World War
no,
II. What are you talking
like
about? The entire rebuilding of Europe, right? The foundation of Eastern Germany? What are you
what I
talking about?
meant, what I
The
meant
whole,
is that
our whole entire policy was
prior to World
interventionist.
War II, the United States was isolationist until it was pushed into this war by Pearl
Yeah.
Harbor,
Post-war,
and
yes, following 1948, when they would have
yeah,
intervened in Israel. They were interventionists.
yeah, I understand, but I'm talking about the history of Zionism in the sense when it first emerged, the United States did not play a big role in it,
And it didn't first emerge during the Holocaust.
yeah, no, prior to that, the
Exactly.
The Zionist movement started with like officially with Balfour Declaration, and it evolved, I think, more and more
No, it
after
started
that.
in 1988. No, 1888. Sorry, it started in 1888. The Zionist movement in England started in 1888 following a massacre. But that massacre was, I believe, like 100 people died. Every life lost is a tragedy and horrendous. I agree. But when we're talking on scales, right, that specific massacre absolutely justified a response, absolutely justified a movement. But we've seen ethnic massacres of that all the time. There's no reason to believe that America, who, let's remember, committed genocide in Yemen, is enabling genocide in Sudan, is enabling genocide in the Congo, right? Who is very, very indifferent about genocides and about mass war crimes. There's no reason they would care about them more than anyone else. So
Okay.
the Zionists, what timeline are you talking about? Because you seem to be mixing up the history yourself.
No, I'm
Right?
talking
You
about
reference the Holocaust, but then you say at the start of the movement, you reference the post 1948 support. You reference 1970 support, but then reference the Holocaust. Like, what are we talking about?
okay. I'm talking about the history of Israel. Okay, when we start from Zionism, all the way that the United States support for Israel has increased over time, but it wasn't at this level from the beginning. This is the point. So I've communicated
I
that
agree.
point.
I agree with
Okay.
that.
Okay, then we can move on. I think a big problem for America and the West, not just America, is the survival of the Jews in the Middle East. Okay, and I think by the time Israel created, there were already indigenous Jews in the Middle East and North Africa that amounted to, I think, around 800,000 people. At the time, that was a big deal, right? The
Why is
population.
that a big deal to them?
I'll explain why it was a big deal to them. Because I think that the only way, at least the philosophy of many people in the West, is the only way you can protect the Jews is by allowing them to rule themselves and to protect themselves.
Why do they
Because,
care about this minority more than other minorities?
at the time, because of what happened. Like, obviously, if you're
Then
coming
why did
up,
they not care about that at the time of the foundation of Israel?
no, I'm talking about what happened after World War II. Okay.
Exactly. Wait, are you sorry? Okay, you're talking about the exodus from North Africa, etc.
Yeah, and I'm talking about the
Okay,
exodus of.
that's an interesting argument.
I'm talking about the presence of the Jewish people in North Africa and the Middle East that, by the way, preceded the creation of Israel by,
Dennis, I'm
by
aware. This
by
is an
many.
interesting argument. You're saying America started to care because of the increased expulsion or exodus of Jews from North Africa and the Middle East.
To a certain extent, but I think the bigger picture, not just America, but in the West in general, I think the argument is that in order for the Jews to not suffer another fate like the Holocaust, right, to like the genocide over there, they have to have their own right to self-determination, and they have like we can only trust Jews with their protection, right? We can't trust a
I
certain
understand this.
government.
This is a really basic concept, and you're taking a really long time to explain the really basics that
Okay,
I understand. I
okay.
understand what an ethno-state is.
No, I don't think it's
That
necessarily
is an ethno-state.
I don't think it's necessarily an ethno-state, because an ethno-state is more like a state where other ethnicities are not able to enjoy the same rights as other like non-Jews, for example. Although in Israel, I don't think it rises to the level of ethno. There are certain preferential treatment, and there is preferential treatment in other Arab
Is
countries.
Israel a Jewish state?
I'm sorry?
Is Israel a Jewish state?
Yes, I think
That's
they
an
self-identify
wow,
as such.
incredible.
Okay,
That's an
but
ethno-state, brother.
okay, but does Egypt, for example, or Tunisia or Morocco self-identify as Muslim and Arab states? Yes or
Yes,
no?
when they identify as an Arab state, they're identifying as an ethno-state. Yep, correct.
Okay, so
Ding
okay.
dong.
I mean, I guess you could say that there are many
That's the
ethnostates in the
definition.
region. But, you know, what can I say? But if that's your definition of ethnostates, at least it's
That's
consistent.
the international definition of ethno-state.
Okay, but it seems that instead of singling out Israel, we can at least agree that
I did it. I said I know what an ethno-state is, right? I
Okay.
wasn't singling them out. You were describing Israel, and I said that's what they are, and you were like, no, they're not.
Okay, do you
Cool.
think they're a democracy?
Do I think they're a democracy? No.
Why? If not, why so?
Also, okay, I love you, Athena. I love you, Athena, so much. Arab is an ethno-linguistic categorization. They are an ethnic group. And I didn't say that I didn't say that Egyptians were all Arab or all ethnically Arab. I said that when Egypt identifies as I said that when Egypt identifies as an Arab state, they are identifying as an ethno-state. That's two different things. I'm not saying
Yes,
they
and
are
then-
actually an ethno-state. I'm saying when they identify as such, they are identifying as this. Right?
And by the way, Will, I'm literally referencing constitutions in some Arab countries where they self-identify as such. So, well, okay, since we agree on that, like, why is Israel not a democracy?
Because they're denying 750,000 people who have rightful citizenship in their area the right to reside, much less vote.
Okay, but you understand that democracies are capable of occupying other land, are capable of committing war crimes, are capable of.
I know you're not a democracy if you don't let your citizens vote. Or if
No,
only some of
but
your
they're not
citizens can
citizens
vote.
though. This is
They are. They legally have the right to citizenship.
Does the United Nations recognize the West Bank as Israeli territory? I don't think that even Israel.
I'm talking about the
West
Nakba
Bank.
refugees, bro.
The right to return, is there a binding international law resolution that calls for the right to return? Because the only thing that I've seen
there is,
is
right?
a General Assembly resolution, which is non-binding.
Yeah, well, no, that's a reading of the Geneva Convention, brother.
Yeah, but I'm talking about a resolution that is an order from the ICJ or the Security Council.
That you don't need that. A common sense reading of international law is enough to say that they have the right to return. I have my rights, but you punch me. I have the right not to be punched prior to the court finding that I have that right. That's just how laws work.
Like for me personally, I think if we're gonna take our own subjective interpretations of what's happened, like we can go
It's not
very different
subjective.
ways.
It's an objective, common sense reading of the law.
Okay, but you don't understand that it can be subjective in some ways. But here's
I
my
don't even
point.
understand what those words mean.
Okay, here's my point. I think that you can disagree with Israel on many things, right? Well, like their campaign in Gaza or their illegal settlements in the West Bank. But I think when people call them a fascist country or whatever, they're sort of.
I wouldn't use the word fascist immediately.
Yeah, maybe not you, but I see some like leftists.
Talk to me.
Okay, but when you say that they're undemocratic, okay, I think the problem that I have with that, like, I don't know if you follow the case from South Africa, but in case you didn't know, there were literally Israeli politicians participating in that case, right? Israeli politicians.
You realize apartheid South Africa had a parliament, right?
I'm talking about, like, let me finish the point. Israeli politicians and Israeli citizens, right? And I think if you, for example, would do that in Russia, if Russian citizens or Russian like politicians residing in Russia participated in favor of Ukraine in the ICJ case against Russia and Ukraine, they would be charged with treason, right? There was a woman in January charged with
isn't an
treason for
argument
merely
apartheid
donating
South Africa had a parliament.
$52. So I think it's kind of a little bit, far-fetched in a sense to say they're not a democracy just because you disagree with, like, the way that they're waging this war.
That's not what I said. My main contention that they're not no democracy is the denial of the right of return to the Nakba refugees. So,
Okay, the right to return. Are you talking specifically about people who were born on that land, or even their ancestors? I mean, even if they're
I
descendants.
mean, the direct descendants have the right to return.
Okay,
It would be hypocritical. It would be hypocritical
okay,
for
direct
Israel,
descendants.
which it itself claims to be a refugee state, and the Jews having a right of return by merit of being descendants of people who kicked off their land, to deny it. So yeah, I'm going to use the Israeli line of, yeah, we were kicked off at anywhere from now to 2,000 years ago, and we have the right to come back to this land. That's fine.
Okay, but when you say, I think the problem with direct descendants is that even in some countries, like for example in Europe, say for example France, right? If you are born in France, you don't even have automatic right to citizenship. I'm sure you know this, right? It's limited, it's conditional. The state will have to approve, even if you are born in France, right? If your parents are immigrants, whatever, like the state has to approve. So I understand that birthright here in America is like enshrined in the Constitution and everything.
Dennis, it's enshrined in the Israeli Constitution, but just for Jews.
Yeah, it's enshrined in the Israeli.
Yeah, that's fucking racist.
Israel doesn't have a constitution; they have laws. They don't have a constitution.
No, they have constitutional documents. One of which is the law of return.
Yeah, those are laws. Israel doesn't have a constitution. So
You don't know what?
is,
no. Oh my God, you're. I hate bringing this up. Actually, I love bringing it up. I am a law student. I study English law. People say the same shit about England. England doesn't have a constitution. Yes, it does. It has constitutional documents. Obviously, it does. You can't. A government wouldn't be constituted if it didn't have a constitution. A constitution doesn't just mean the literal document that, like, America has, which is one thing, right? It's the things that constitute the state, the constitution of the state, right? That's what that word means, and we can understand it that way.
yeah, but
Israel has constitutional documents.
But the right to return can be repealed, right? And it doesn't have like special protections, like the Constitution, for example, in the United States. You have to have a two-third majority. It has to be ratified by a two-third majority of the states. So that's what I mean.
Okay, is the Bill of Rights part of the Constitution?
The Bill of Rights, I think like it's not part of the Constitution. I don't think it is, right? Well, I don't think it is part of the Constitution itself. But
is the First Amendment part of the Constitution?
Yes.
Is the First Amendment part of the Bill of Rights?
I think yes. I don't know, but whatever.
Yes and yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes. But
could we hypothetically repeal the First Amendment?
No, I don't think you can. But I think you can amend the
Constitution. Yes, you can.
But
it's in the Constitution. Seventh Amendment, or their seventh article. How to amend the Constitution. Constitutional amendment. Constitutional documents are amendable.
Yeah, but I think the process is that they have special protections in the sense that
that's not definitional. Are you saying it wouldn't be constitutional if it could be amended by majority vote?
Yeah.
Why?
What I'm trying to say is that there are the right to return is much easier to change than our constitution. Like I think in France or the Constitution here in the U.S. or so that's the point. But anyway, yes, I do agree with you. The right to return. I mean that's a law that gives Jewish people the ability to immigrate to Israel. But what I'm talking about is the right to.
They're hypocritical for giving that right and not giving the right to Arabs, right?
I think at the time. The United Nations created two states, right? And the two states were to accommodate two different identities. That is the Arab Muslim identity.
And that would be an ethno state.
Yeah,
So it'd be
okay.
two ethno-states. So they created two ethno-states.
Yeah,
I
but
don't
maybe
support ethno-states. So is your
uh,
argument? No, they're not hypocritical. They're just ethno-states.
yeah, but I wish we
Ethno-states
could
can't be
live.
democracies.
I wish we could live in a world that doesn't revolve around ethnicity and religion.
Is
Okay,
America an ethno-state?
to a certain extent, yes, because
No way.
Christian values, even though myself I'm not religious, but Christian values play a huge role. Played not just in the founding of America, not even in the what you refer to as the constitutional documents, okay, and God-given rights and everything, right? But also it continues to play a role today. I think even the IVF ruling, I think, what was the state? Alabama, I think, right? So it continues to play a role today, right? So I do think that most countries on earth, they have a certain ethno-religious
So them being
identity.
influenced by a certain ethnicity or religion is drastically different than being an ethno-state, right? When I say ethno-state, I mean their goal is to accommodate, like when Israel says they are a Jewish nation, right? That's unquestionably they are a fucking Jewish nation. I'll take them at their word, right? America says it is not, right? Then you can go in and look at their laws and say, well, there's bias here, there's differences here. Yeah, and I would say America's a racist nation. America's a despicably racist nation. But we are a constitutionally multi-ethnic democracy. That is what we are constituted to be. It's just drastically different. And I agree that we're structurally racist, but we're constitutionally different. But anyway, you're saying,
Would
well,
you
it
consider?
would be great if Israel could be less racist. That would be lovely, but that's just not the world we live
No,
in.
I don't
Well,
think.
then you should work towards a better world, you know?
Here's the thing. For I think the difference between me and other leftists is that I don't have a fixation on Israel in the sense that I'm singling them out, right? I'd love to
I'm not
live in a
singling them out.
world. I'd love to live in a world where ethnicity and religion didn't have as much like important role to play in our lives, right? But the reality is the United Nations partition plan in 1947 envisioned two different states to accommodate, and this is, by the way, the Arabs rejected the white paper, right? The Jews also rejected the white paper at the time because you had like a solution was offered for a binational country, right, to accommodate both Jews and Arabs, but it was
Yeah, that was offered by the Arab Palestinian Congress in 1946.
I'm sorry?
So, that was offered by the Arab Palestinian Congress in 1946.
I don't know, but I'm referring directly to the white paper. It was rejected on the basis that it did not limit Jewish migration. Okay, so if you had like one side complaining about migration of a certain ethnicity, it wasn't going to work pragmatically speaking, because if you're going to establish a binational state, you can't say, oh, we're a binational state, but we're not going to allow more than this number of Jewish people to migrate to this country. So it wasn't going to work that way. I think the United Nations envisioned a two-state plan. I wish it wasn't that way. I wish everybody would get along, but it was meant to be like, a Jewish state and an Arab state, right? And 400,000.
Yeah, and I think that's shitty. Like, once again, work towards it being better. Like, I don't know what to say. Have a better proposal. You're just saying, well, I agree that would be moral, but like, pragmatically, it's just not possible. Well, pragmatically, this isn't working either.
I think this could work had we put more attention and more focus on solving the problems on both sides, right? I think that both sides have to accept the other side's right to exist.
Which they have. That's what the PA did. That's what Yasser Arafat did.
Yasser Arafat rejected, for example, the UN
and
resolution.
Israel rejected a plan from Yasser Arafat.
Like Yasser Arafat rejected Resolution 242, right? Which basically called for the establishment of two states. So Yasser Arafat...
No, Dennis. During the Camp David Accords, Yasser Arafat offered a two-state solution.
Yeah, both sides offered the two-state solution, but the devil...
Yeah, exactly. And Israel denied the two-state solution that was on the 1967 borders, which was more than they were entitled to.
The devil is in the details. Both sides accepted the principle of a two-state solution in the Camp David, right? They wouldn't have gone there if they did not believe in a two-state solution. But the problem with the details, Yasser Arafat, for example, wanted everybody to have the right to return, including descendants.
Yes, which Israel has a legal obligation to do.
Well, we don't have, like, I think that we can't, especially after losing war, I don't think you can go to the negotiating table insisting on every demand to be met, right? Even if it's
So
like,
you
for
think Yasser
example,
Arafat had a moral obligation to not only accept that most of the Palestinian land following the 1947 resolution was stolen by Israel, right? Which he did. He said, okay, yeah, you can take that. But he also had to live with 750,000 now, and at the time a few hundred thousand, of his countrymen existing continuously as refugees.
I don't
But
think
Dennis, what this is victim blaming. You realize that, right? You're
no,
saying, okay, look, we're going to condemn the victim for not accepting their oppression, rather than convicting the oppressor for not accepting the peace in exchange for their oppression. Right? There's no doubt, right, in my mind at least, that there would have been exponentially less war had Israel accepted Yasser Arafat's turn. And we might actually see a notably less racist two states, right? That would have been the best. But Israel decided to continue their oppression, right, rather than accept peace.
I think here's a problem. My position is not about anything other than to be pragmatic and to find like a better future for both sides in a practical way, because we can continue to talking about this every
But
single day.
pragmatism is just a shoehorn in for accepting the people that have the power are allowed to use the power how they want.
Well,
I disagree. Neither of us at the negotiating table. If I was on the negotiating table with Yasser Arafat, right, I would have said, yeah, fucking take the deal. You're not going to get anything better. But after the fact, I'm going to say, go to hell, right, Israel, for offering a horrendous criminal offer. Right, they're the shitty people. Right, it doesn't prevent them from being shitty that they, had the firepower to back it up.
No, I don't think like here's the thing. I don't think that Ehud Barak or the other leftist leaders that preceded him. I don't think they were necessarily shitty people. I think they gave peace a chance. It was undermined by H Group, as you know, in the 1993, 1994. Yasser Arafat signed the Oslo Accords, and they started doing like tea attacks inside Israel, which, by the way, further
They
emboldened
never ended the criminal oppression of the Palestinian people.
I'm sorry?
They never ended the criminal oppression of the Palestinian people.
Yeah, but I think
I would believe you is if they came as equals, right? They did not come as equals. They came as an oppressor talking to an oppressed, with America, the funder of the oppressor, negotiating. And I would say, yeah, given that context, Yasser Arafat got a damn good deal, right? But we cannot turn around and condemn him for not accepting the deal, as it was still criminal. He would be complicit in criminality.
Okay, yeah, but I guess since we both agree that maybe it would have been better to take that deal, my concern is that over time it's getting worse and worse for the Palestinians, and at some point there has to be positive steps
when someone comes and steps on my neck, right, until I give them my money, it gets worse and worse for me. But that's totally irrelevant to the question of what they should or should not be doing.
Yeah, but I think that the history of humanity, the context here, right, is that they failed to, for example, accept the UN Resolution 1947, which, by the way, would have left everybody in place. The 400,000 population inside Israel would have become Israeli citizens per that UN partition plan, right? But they
we
rejected
all know that's not what was going to happen, right?
Well,
we all know that
speculate.
A partition ends in mass migration. Like, we can live in delusion that Pakistan and Israel and India don't exist. Right, but
yeah, we at least we can agree that would be speculation, our own speculation. You can speculate in one direction.
No, it's just historical analysis.
Oh, okay.
This is what is going to happen. When we do a partition, we see this. When Cyprus was partitioned, we saw ethnic violence increase. When India and Pakistan were partitioned, this is what happened. Right? When we partitioned Kosovo from Serbia, this is what happened. When we partitioned South Sudan from Sudan, this is what happened. We see it every single time. It's not speculation, and if this is speculation, then that's the only point of this conversation.
Okay, but I think the context I'm trying to explain here is that when you sort of go against a proposal by the United Nations, voted by a majority of 2/3, and you declare
it was an
war.
Offer. They didn't accept the offer. They don't have to.
Yeah, they didn't accept the offer.
Exactly.
Voted on by the United Nations, and you go on to declare a war with the casus belli of destroying Israel, right? And you eventually lose that war, and you lose other wars. Maybe some of them were Israel in the wrong, maybe some others Israel is not wrong. Although 73, I sympathize with Egypt trying to get its land back. So it sort of depends. But after losing many wars, eventually you have to come to the negotiating table. and make a compromise, right? This is what's going to happen in Ukraine. I don't think people today are protesting in the street saying, "Hey, give Crimea back to to Ukraine," even though that is what the
What's the
international
point of
law
saying
says.
this, Dennis?
I'm sorry?
Would you say this to Black
To
South
Ukrainians?
Africans?
No, I think South Africans, it's kind of like the way I view Israel and Palestine as a civil war, because I view both people having the right to have a national home in that region, both
Why?
for
Yeah,
Middle
cool.
Eastern
But
Jews.
why was it? Well, why was Israel able? Let's just all be real. Why was Israel able to defend itself like 1967, right? Following 1967, it was American support. This is
Yeah,
not. This is not just a civil war, right? This is a war between superpowers. And okay, so if it's a civil war, right, then they're not losing wars against each other, just destroying each other.
right.
You're saying somehow the fight between the white South Africans and black South Africans weren't, when a huge amount of the white South Africans still are there, like the Afrikaners are still there, weren't kicked out, still live there. What you're saying seems to be that somehow once you lose enough, once you've been oppressed enough, you just have to bend a knee and give up. Is
No,
that what you're saying?
no, there's a huge difference. First of all, South Africa didn't, like, the apartheid like state over there was not claiming to protect a certain historically oppressed
100% they
minority.
claim to protect the white people in South Africa.
Okay, the white people in South Africa, they have many homes elsewhere in the world where they are the
Why does that have
majority
to
and
do with
they're
the black
not.
South Africans?
I'm sorry?
Why do the black South Africans care?
Why did the
Because
black
I'm
South?
talking about, okay, I'm talking about what the oppressed people, the black South Africans, the Palestinians, owe to their oppressors, right? The Israelis are clearly the oppressors in this case, right? It's just obvious.
Yeah,
They continuously win, right? So what do they owe? Why does it matter that in the past and in other places and all over, right, the oppressors are otherwise oppressed? It has nothing to do with the current conflict. I'm talking about a relationship between these two people. People always like to bring this up. The plight of the Jewish people is disgusting and should have a solution, right? But the plight of the Jewish people is not the responsibility of the Palestinians. And the
it,
Palestinians don't owe anything to the Jewish people because of their plight.
well, it is, like, to a certain extent, the Jewish people, 900,000 of them, even prior to the existence of Israel, were native to that land. The Jewish people have, like, connection, historical
I
connection to
know.
the
So
Holy Land.
as natives, they have every right to be there. I
Yeah,
agree. But that
as
has
natives,
nothing to do with them being oppressed.
as natives, and they continue to be oppressed in some, like,
But
having
Dennis,
limited.
that has nothing. So the fact that they are native, I agree. The Palestinians, everyone has an obligation to respect that right. But that has nothing to do with them being oppressed.
Oh, okay, but I'm talking about the need for a national home for the Jews of the Middle East. Let's just put aside the Jews of Europe, okay? Let's talk just about the Jews of the Middle East, who, after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, were facing multiple threats in multiple countries,
Yeah,
right?
but
We
once
can
again,
disagree.
hashtag not the Palestinians' responsibility.
Okay, but the United Nations, before the creation of the state of Palestine, because the state of Palestine with those borders, it never existed as a state or an entity with those
Neither did
borders,
Israel
okay?
with those borders.
Yeah, exactly. So
Cool.
the United Nations created a partition plan to accommodate
Yeah, and
both.
offered it to the two, which was contingent on both of them accepting it. It was never put in place, but that's
It
neither here nor
was,
there. You keep pointing. You don't have
yeah.
an obligation to accept an offer by the UN.
I mean, nobody has an obligation to accept anything, but I'm explaining the
That's not true.
situation.
I have an obligation to accept a court order mandate.
Yeah, what my point is, I'm explaining the situation is that the spirit of the plan was to accommodate both reasonable.
Yeah, racistly. The Palestinians offered a one-state binational place with limitations on Jewish migration and also constitutional protections for Jewish residents.
Yeah, but
right?
the issue with limitation on Jewish.
The Jews should have taken that. Why don't we condemn the Jewish people for not taking that?
I'm sorry, but limitation on Jewish migration.
I'm sorry, but a fucking racist ethno-state is worse.
We can talk about worse or not worse, but at least I think both sides would have had a home.
One oppressed people rather than another. Why?
Both sides would have had a home, but if you're gonna claim that a country, I'm sorry, if you're gonna claim a country is a home to both Jews and Muslims and Christians, and say, well, by the way, you guys, the Jewish people, you're not allowed to immigrate to this land, except, like, that is discriminatory per se. And
Lebanon did that.
Binational state.
Lebanon did that.
I'm sorry.
Lebanon did that.
Yeah, I'm sorry that Lebanon also, I think that's not like a state that
Would you prefer a two-state Lebanon?
if that's what people wanted, yes.
No
I
one,
think if people
only
wanted,
the
for example,
Israelis wanted the
Christians,
two-state solution. You're saying, no, no. The thing is when you create a constitutional binational democracy, right? You need to limit immigration in order to maintain a binational democracy when there is a huge push for almost unlimited migration in that area of one ethnicity. Because it's called settler colonialism. It's exactly what they did. What the Arabs were trying to protect against was settler colonialism from the West, because the West kept trying to push Jews into the area. Number one, for anti-Semitic reasons, and number two, because Zionists kept wanting to outvote the Arabs in the area. This is what they did, and this is what Muslims did in Lebanon. Muslims out procreated Christians in Lebanon. Right? It
you
doesn't
see,
function if you have unlimited migration. I agree, you have the right to, right? But once again, if we're talking practicality, Dennis, this is always going to breed more peace than two ethno-states that one side doesn't want.
you see, here you're talking about demographics in the sense that you have to limit Jewish migration because you're being pushed there, etc. Ironically, you repeat the same argument that Israel makes when they reject the descendants of people who suffered from a Nakba, right? They say, well, that's going to upset the demographics of our nation. We'll no longer be a Jewish...
And what did I say? And what did I say about that?
Like you, but
For
you can't
both
possibly
cases, what did I
criticize
say?
Israel
No,
if
what
they...
I criticized, sorry, what did I actually say about? What was my conclusion regarding maintenance of binational states by migration?
I'm assuming that you would say it's a bad thing, right?
I mean, I verbatim said that.
Okay, it's a bad thing, but if that's what was accepted at the time, or what was offered by the Arab Congress, that is not a good solution. If
It's
you
better than a two-state solution that was there.
But if a two-state solution, and you have two states where both people enjoy their full rights without any limitation on migration,
Except for not being able to live in half their home.
like half of their homes, I'm sorry, but like 1948, right? That was 77 years ago. I'm sorry, like if somebody sells the home of my grandmother, whatever, in France, I'm not going to go back there and say, like, you understand that many of these descendants are now like American citizens. They're now like, they have their own lives and everything. So I don't think that that should be the number one priority. I think the number one priority should be building a future for the people of Gaza.
Cool, Dennis,
and the
but you're
people in the
you're
West
switching
Bank.
between contexts.
No, I'm talking about pragmatic.
I was talking about not living in half your home during 1948. You switch now to the context of modern day. Dennis, you're not following what's actually being said.
No, I'll explain.
I don't actually. I'm just gonna end this here, just for like time out. What are we arguing about? Right, we're arguing kind of in feelings, much more than actually like premise by premise, argument by argument.
Okay, what I'm arguing about is in pursuing peace, there has to be priorities, right? Now, I understand that there is, I'll explain the priorities. Priority number one, in my opinion, should be building a future for the people who are in Gaza and the people who are in the West Bank who don't have
I agree.
Okay. Now, another priority for other people maybe is for the descendants who now live in Europe or the UAE or America to be back. I think that the descendants of Palestinians who live, for example, in other countries, who are born in America and have full rights in America and whatever, right? I don't think is as big of a priority as the people in Gaza unable to, have basic needs and everything. So when you're pursuing
we agree.
peace, when you're pursuing peace, you should prioritize. You can make concessions regarding the...
Dennis, we've already agreed. Yasser Arafat should have accepted the proposal.
Yeah, okay. So moving forward, if Yasser Arafat, we agree he should have accepted that proposal. I think moving forward, knowing that Israel is not going anywhere, I think the focus should be on pursuing a two-state solution.
Which they are. The PA is offering this.
Yeah, but I'm talking about a national consensus, not just PA, because I think
you're going to reach a national consensus when you're being bombed.
Well, maybe after the war, but I'm talking about currently H group doesn't.
I think the biggest priority right now is stopping the bombing of children. I don't know about you, Dennis. The thing is, when I say we're arguing about nothing, this is what I mean, right? If that was your whole point for the past 20 minutes, right, you wasted my time. I agree, right?
Okay.
I agree. If we're sitting down at the table and these are the priorities, yeah, this is the offer that the PA is making currently and is hated by the Palestinian people for making. right? But they are making this offer nonetheless, right? It is a two-state solution with a
Well,
fucking
if
neutered right of
that's
return. Okay, Dennis, you're saying nothing, right? Yeah, but you seem to be why I think you're doing this is because I don't actually think that's what you're arguing. You seem to have contempt for the Palestinians for not accepting their oppression, which I disagree with. You seem to have contempt for Yasser Arafat for not accepting this offer when it was fucking criminal. I disagree with that. You seem to think that somehow in any world the partition plan was acceptable. Not at all, right? Nothing about this was. The mass settler colonialism of oftentimes European Jews into the area was unacceptable, right? We all know that. They have every right to be there as a person, but they have no right to forcibly take their land in Palestine like they did. And to suggest that the colonialism was merely them initiating their right to live in the land is such a lie. So the thing is do you disagree with this statement up here? Let's get this on something maybe we disagree with.
okay.
Do you
Yes,
disagree with this statement up here?
I do disagree with that statement because I think it has to be viewed in a more nuanced way, right?
No shit, it's a
Mostly,
sentence. But
okay.
why do you think America should continue to fund Israel and the IDF?
I'll give you an example. In the latest appropriation bill, right? There are, I think, $5 billion for the Iron Dome, and there are $2 billion for the Iron Beam, which is a similar system.
Yeah, no,
These
I'm
are
aware.
air defenses systems for Israel, and the philosophy of the United States, starting with Obama, right after H Group took over Gaza and started launching rockets nonstop into Israel. The
Yeah, cool.
philosophy
You
of
say it's for defense funding. Really quick answer. What happens when America funds their defense entirely? Where does the money that they would have spent on defense go?
it goes towards the de-escalation of the conflict, which
No.
has
When
worked.
you stop, when you don't have to spend as much money on defense, right? Let's make a really easy way. If I want to buy two things, or if I want to buy two things, but I only have money for one, right? But then you come in and say, "Hey, you can only spend it. Give me the money," and then say, "You can only spend this money on this other thing." Great. Now I can buy to both things. The
I,
fact, that's what I'm saying. They're just going to start substituting the money into offense, and that's exactly what they do. The fact that we're funding their defense means they can take the money they would have spent on defense and put it
the
into offense.
No, I disagree because the Iron Dome is a cooperation program that is between. It would not be able to proceed without the United States and some
No,
manufacturers
they could
in the
buy it
United
from us.
States.
They could buy it from us.
I'm sorry?
They can buy it from us. We
Yeah,
don't need to be funding them. They can spend their own money and buy it from us.
but if you could let me finish the point that I'm trying to make, and maybe you'll
Well,
understand
it's
my
just I have to
argument
go in
better.
like a minute, so I want to speed run it. Is your argument that we're funding their defense, not their offense?
No, I'm thinking the argument is that it has been a de-escalatory strategy because if Israel was able to shoot down these missiles that are coming from the north and from the south, then Israel
In what
wouldn't
world are
have
they
to
de-escalating?
invade.
When is this de-escalation happening?
This de-escalation has been happening and is the reason why.
When? And I don't see any de-escalation.
Like
It's
you
only been
have to be
escalating
able
for the
to
past
let me
15
finish
years.
my sentence. Hear
Give me
the
a
full
time.
thought.
Give me a date.
Okay, hear the full thought and maybe you can judge. Okay, 2011, I think the year when Obama started working with the Israelis on the Iron Dome. The notion was that Israel, you don't have to go into Gaza. You don't have to take Gaza back because you're going to be able to shoot down the missiles that are coming from H Group. And
Cool.
that's
And what was
remained
implemented in
true.
2012?
Yeah, 2011, 2012, whatever it is.
No, and what was implemented directly following the year they started that?
I'm sorry?
What was implemented the year after they started that? Famously in 2012, what was implemented?
Are you talking about the blockade? Because the blockade
Yes, that's escalation,
started.
bro.
The blockade started after 2007. Maybe some rules were changed, but it wasn't
No, the full
2012.
blockade, right, following 2007. The following then was 2012. The illegal full blockade of Gaza started in 2012 because there was a massive offensive, right, by Hamas at that time.
Okay, but let me
So
let me
that's
explain.
escalation, brother in Christ.
And not just H Group and Gaza, but also the North, because right now I'm worried about the potential conflict between Lebanon and Israel. But if Israel
Anyway, I've
continues
got
to
to go, love.
okay.
He's up. But okay, I'm gonna run just because I have to call my sibling. But yeah, right. Yeah. Gorgeous. Okay, I've got to go. Y'all should follow me on YouTube. YouTube's linked in bio. If you don't already follow me, this will be posted later, I think. I might come back. Let me see if anything of interest has happened. No, no. Okay. Slay. All right. Bye, Queens. Thank you. And thank you so much for the person that cash at me. And yo, I do have medical aid for Palestinians if you want to support for that. That's awesome and great. All right. League 1C. Oh, am I on? I'm on the weekly rating. Very cool. League C1. What the fuck is this? Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Peace out, loves. Bye.